Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host Omar Khalid, but today is the 29th of November 2024. These are the stories that we'll try to understand, decipher during the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the Middle East crisis. Of course, this is day 418, but also today is an important day from the world perspective, because today is the International Day for Solidarity with Palestinians as well. Whether it be Pakistan or many other countries across the world, there is a very solid solidarity with the Palestinian cause, with their right to self-determination, with their right for the two-state solution, with their right to the land that they are being slowly ejected from and killed and massacred in. This and more will be discussed in our first segment when we discuss the Middle East situation, Gaza, Lebanon, the plight of the people in both these areas, and of course with reference to this International Day for Solidarity with Palestinians as well. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns Australia's social media that has now banned, in fact Australia's government that has banned the social media for the children under the age of 16. Although it will take some time for this ban to be completely effective, the fact is it has already gained a lot of reaction, positive and negative, from the parents and from the social media companies. There have been tries in other countries to impose some kind of a ban. Some countries have been successful, others not. But what is good media? What is bad media? How should children, especially those who are influenceable and under the age of 18, understand and know the difference between truth and fake information and disinformation? This is what we will discuss in our second story. Then we are going to talk about Russia that may use its own Oreshik hypersonic missile to attack decision-making centers in Kiev in response to the Ukraine's firing of Western missiles at Russian territory. This has been confirmed by President Vladimir Putin. We all know that the US had given the authorization for Ukraine to use these missiles, and it did use those missiles. And now, of course, the world awaits with bated breath as to what happens from the Russian side. But there seems to be some kind of an inkling through this statement of Vladimir Putin. Finally, we are going to talk about Thanksgiving. Now, the US is celebrating Thanksgiving through different mechanisms, in families, of course, with the turkey, but also in a very it celebrates it with different kinds of functions where all the celebrities come, and the most important is that in Macy's, that happens in New York and followed by Chicago. We will give some glimpses of what Thanksgiving means from different perspectives in the United States of America. Let's begin with our first story, and that concerns the Middle East crisis, which has entered now its 418th day, specifically with regards to the Israel-Palestine conflict. But of course, there is also the angle of the Israel-Lebanon conflict, now the Israel-Syria conflict, the Israel-Yemen conflict, and the Israel-Iran conflict. We have been joined by two guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. In the studios, after a very, very long hiatus, we've been joined by Dr. Salma Malik, who is an international relations expert. Thank you very much, Dr. Salma, to have finally agreed to come join us for this show.
Thank you.
And online, we've been joined by Shazia Anwar Cheema. She's a foreign affairs expert. Shazia, thank you very much to have joined us as well. Let's begin with you. Without further ado, Salma, International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinians is being observed today in Pakistan and all across the world. This day, the international community stands in solidarity with the Palestinians for their dignity, for their rights, justice and self-determination of the Palestinian people. How important is this day, and how important is it for the world to realize the importance of the day in perspective of these 418 days that have been passed since the whole conflict began?
Unfortunately, this day kind of reminds us of how tyranny and injustice prevails in the face of the call for peace, equity, justice, freedom for all. And this is not a day which Pakistan alone is observing, or as you mentioned, the world over is observing. Just as a token, this is a day which actually commemorates the UN Resolution 181 that called for the partition. It's as old as 1947. So it is, this particular day is as old as the creation of the issue of Palestine and Israel. And under that resolution, the context that both these regions would be separated yet economically tied, and this kind of a partition plan that was made out, primarily it was about this. But what we see is that since 1947 to date, not only have there been immense violations by Israel, in fact Palestine in case Israel's punity continues the way it does, you may just mention about it in a past reference, or very small territory which would be the shadow of its original self. So this is very important to signify and to highlight to the people, and I think in schools and everywhere this should be celebrated in full vigor, where there should be kind of not exactly fun, but costumes and all that, to tell people what Palestine is all about, so that people internalize it and understand, and also to highlight the plight what they have been through.
Because Dr. Salma, this is what I feel is slowly and steadily Palestine is being erased from the memory of the children.
And this is the biggest tragedy that comes with this date.
That is true.
So true.
Shazia, Anwar, Cheema, coming to you, our Prime Minister, our President have both made very strong statements as far as this International Day for Solidarity with the Palestinians is concerned. How do you view Pakistan's support as far as the Palestinian cause is concerned? Because, I mean, we've discussed this in the past as well, the way Pakistan has highlighted the Palestinian cause on different fora, and also has talked about it on the United Nations front, in the General Assembly and elsewhere. What more can countries do in order to highlight this cause and in order to work for the plight of the Palestinians?
Countries can do there is lot should be done, as we have seen, but Pakistan, even before creation of Pakistan, in couple of speeches from Qaid-e-Azam, it has been mentioned that our solidarity towards Palestinian people and the state of Palestine is always there, and this is our stated position, diplomatic position, that we haven't accepted the state of Israel ever, and Palestine, we have this strong diplomatic stance that there has to be a Palestinian state. But so far, what can be done? We have seen that at some point we have let down the Palestinian people. If we have done whatever we could have done, we would not have seen this, what we have seen in past 2 years, specifically this ongoing genocide, and we are witnessing it helplessly. And we are the cursed nation after the Second World War. I must say that we have to witness that, and that's again like, what can we do? The world has been divided into and polarized into so many material things that humanity and human rights are so relative and subjective. But of course, Pakistan's support is always there, and we never ever just leave the inch to not to support Palestinian. But is it enough just to support Palestinian diplomatically? I think we must put these things into the higher forums. We must discuss these things in regional forums. We must discuss in these things in United Nations, and also it's always been in our curriculum so far, Pakistan is concerned, that Palestinian issue, we have always been taught that it's in our textbooks, it's in our curriculum, we always observe that. But I mean, there is something missing in that, and the result, we are seeing this, we are witnessing it, and we have to do a lot.
That, Shazia, Anwar, Cheema. Dr. Salma, coming to you, our Foreign Secretary, who's in Belgium, of course, attending a mood, talks also about the two-state solution, as you highlighted, talks about the full membership of Palestine in the United Nations. That was also put forward, and Pakistan was one of the main countries that put forward this resolution, but of course didn't happen. This coupled with some kind of a hope for ceasefire in Palestine, now that a shaky ceasefire is more or less in place between Israel and Hezbollah. What do you foresee on the ceasefire front? I'd like to just take that angle. Ceasefire in Gaza, is this a reality that could happen, or is it only relegated to, say, Lebanon?
For the moment, it's Lebanon only. And we also see that Iran has welcomed this in its own words, but at the same time they've also cautioned that they are going to avenge for the strikes that took place against them. So, we have seen in this past 1+ year several moments of ceasefire, and once those small pauses in war finished, this not exactly a war, this assault on the Palestinians finished, we saw that the Israelis stepped up their aggression, and they stepped up not only their aggression vertically, horizontally as well.
True.
So, it was expanding the territory within Palestine and also upscaling the level of violence. And then we were not expecting, and we were all very cautiously, even in your programs, many a times we were discussing that they would try not to escalate it beyond the territory, but they went beyond, and they have done that. And the US, with all its inefficacy, has been trying to tell them not to do what they are doing, but they are doing that with impunity.
Remember the 3-phase deal that Joe Biden had put forward, where it never materialized.
So, it could also be one way of telling the various watch bodies that now that Netanyahu and his select few are on the ICC list, that no, go slow on us. It's also kind of a lull before Trump takes
and we don't even know what's going to happen in January.
And what's going to happen. So, one never really knows where the Israelis, what the Israelis are planning, and they won't stop unless and until they achieve their end goal.
So and there's a huge question mark on that end goal, as well as and to the aggression to which, or the extent to which they will go as far as their end goal is concerned. Because if you really look at the end goal of Israel, the greater Israel, that includes many other countries as well.
And if you may allow just one thing, this particular day in the resolution 181, through these decades, it has also talked about having an international force to protect the Palestinian territories. It has also talked about sovereignty. It has talked about, the Muslim countries have talked about having their own force, and several other combinations. But none of them have fruitified. And that is kind of a failure of the Palestinian cause, despite this day of solidarity, which is very important, but it has to be backed by solid actions.
I agree with you on that. Shazia and Cheema, when you look at solidarity, when you look at the Palestinian cause, and of course the recent developments as far as the ICC warrants are concerned on Netanyahu and others, do you feel this is going to have an impact? Although on the one hand, we've got Joseph Borrell, who says that the EU needs to, stand by these warrants of the ICC. There are other countries that do not give two hoots as far as even a decision as important as this is concerned. How legally bound is Israel, followed by this ICC decision, or not? Does Israel care?
Israel is not a signatory to the Rome Statute, so Israel is not bound to follow the ICC ruling. But so far, many other leaders we have seen in the past that they have been convicted by ICC, and all the Western, like the global North, they have cherished that decision, and the same, we were hoping that the same would be happen with Netanyahu, but the same institution, and I'm always of the opinion that these post-Bretton Woods institutions, they are very self-serving. They always serve the agenda of global North. So with this ICC decision, we have seen that when Putin was convicted on solely political reasons, all the Europe was, we have seen a euphoria in that, like even the Ukraine and Russia, both are not the signatory of Rome Statute. So, but this time their attitude is different. We are looking at the hesitant and the fumbled statements about the role of ICC and the decision of ICC. Even from America, the spokesperson said that the ruling is based on some flawed some hearings, and there were some procedural problems, impediments. So we have to look again. So far and so, I don't believe in these institutions, and this Gaza genocide has shown us that there is no watchdog in this world. There is no supreme authority. There is no there isn't a single institution which can implement the rule of law or the word order. It's all self-serving, and it's all relative and subjective. So ICC ruling based on Netanyahu does not suit broader West, so they are condemning this decision. This is how things work. That's why Professor Mir Sharma always say that the dilemma the world is facing today, that we have been told for years and years that there is always some entity, somebody, some institution or organization who is regulating the world order. But we eventually have found out that there is nothing. If we cannot condemn the genocide of Gaza right now, and we cannot even talk about it, and if beside, like in Europe, people are even discussing that is it a genocide or not, or and it has always been contrasted with Israel has the right of freedom, and with this totally fundamentally flawed proposition, Israel is a state and it has definitely right of self-determination and self-preservance, but that does not mean that.
I get your point, Shazia and Cheema. Dr. Salma, there have been 3-4 comments regarding Palestine recently. The Israeli Minister for Housing and Construction talks about a Jewish settlement in Gaza that he says is an appropriate response to the October 7 attack. Then we've got Smotrich, who talks about annexing the occupied West Bank, and B also that we need to halve the population of Palestine, and we need to tell them to emigrate elsewhere. Exactly. When you look at these comments, and of course add to that the genocide and the crimes against humanity and the lack of access to food, water, health and otherwise, which is of course a step in that direction exactly, what do you feel is actually going to happen in the next couple of weeks? Will the occupied West Bank be annexed? Will Palestine be halved as far as its Palestinian population is concerned? And C, will there be Jewish settlements in Gaza?
Unfortunately, the last scenarios seem very plausible. When we look at the map of Palestine today and that of 70 plus decades back, it's a shadow of its former self, right? It's nowhere close to what the Palestinian state was all about. So further annexation, displacement of people, asking them to leave their homelands, their ancestral homelands, culling their economy, taking away their olive fields and all. These are very systematic and well stipulated, well thought of plans to make the Palestinians absolutely decide and leave their homeland. And once they don't do that, or make border crossings difficult for them, anything and everything, so that they stop living in the places where they have lived forever and through generations. So Israel has a plan, and this is what they're going to do. Unless and until the international community actually goes beyond lip syncing and ends up doing something concrete for the Palestinians, whatever it takes, even if it takes the deployment of a UN mandated mission, which never will happen, courtesy the veto powering and all. And now with the new administration, which is very, very obviously pro-Israeli, things are going to become much more difficult for the Palestinians.
All right. So it's a wait and see game out what was going to happen.
It's a tragic situation that waits us.
All right. Shazia and your last question as far as you are concerned. France, UK and Germany have in a joint statement urged Israel to renew vital banking ties with the Palestinian financial institutions at least for 12 months. We also know that UNRWA has been banned by the Israeli government, and there's a huge issue of the access to basic amenities and facilities as far as the Palestinians are concerned. How do you view all these three together, and do you feel there's some ray of light at the end of the tunnel? Will Israel maybe have some kind of an agreement with the Palestinian financial institutions? Will there be food and basic necessities supplied to the people in Palestine and not the aid not blocked by the Israelis? And will UNRWA be able to work again?
I don't know. I'm a very hopeful person, but at the same time, I'm a very realist person. So I don't think these statements means anything. These are the statements which we are also hearing from the Biden administration, in the same breath, they are supporting Israel, and the next second they are talking about Palestinian rights. So I don't think that they practically mean something. It's a broader Western agenda to have a strong Israel there. But the hope at the end of the tunnel is deterrence. I don't see any diplomatic solution in that. Hezbollah has stopped. Hezbollah has not agreed or disagreed to a ceasefire. It's between Lebanon and the Israelis. So, but after a day of that agreement, we have seen that Israel is again attacking on Lebanon. So, and I have also heard that Iran is planning a major strike on Israel in next 2 months before the inauguration of next president. So I think that's the hope at the end of the tunnel, because the war has been broadened to Syria, and we have seen during this ceasefire there is a terrorist attack in Aleppo, and Russian soldiers were killed and kidnapped. So now the Iran, Russia, and even Egyptian delegation is in the Israel today, and they arrived yesterday, and they are discussing a ceasefire in Gaza. And I totally agree with our colleague. She was whatever she was talking about, because if we will not deter practically the Israelis, and by Israelis I mean their allies, the broader West, there is no hope in that. There is no diplomatic solution.
With you, there is no hope as far as the current situation is concerned, until and unless the major allies move in the right direction and support the Palestinians in the plight that they are in. Thank you very much, Shazia and Cheema, to have joined us. Coming to you, Dr. Salma, aid, food, water, basic necessities, hospitals destroyed, educational institutions destroyed, homes destroyed, almost all of the basic infrastructure has been destroyed as far as Palestine is concerned, and this has been confirmed by so many reports. Also, the number of people who are being killed every single day and being injured adds to the plight of the people. What is the role of, say, the human rights organizations in this regard, or is there a voice being heard?
Well, Israel is not listening to any voice, however loud that voice may be, however powerful that voice is. It's only listening to itself, and the drum beating is keep on doing what you're doing until and unless each and every Palestinian on its own territory is done for. Even there is a battle fatigue within Israel. The Israeli security forces are demoralized. There is a lot of problem which is happening in-house, which Israel is not making public to the people. But the very fact is that it continues with impunity, because, and it's not even listening to the US. If we say that, oh, okay, the US has a big sound or a sound bite into what Israel has to do, so it's not even listening to that. So they have this free hand, and they can do whatever they feel like. The Palestinian people are very resilient, and they're doing their utmost to resist Israel's violence and impunity, and that is a beautiful tragedy by itself. But that's it. I mean, how much can humans suffer? At the end of the day, a child lost is a child lost for a mother. How much can we say that these things have happened for the right cause? You're wiping out an entire generation, you're wiping out an entire race of people. This is a genocide, and whenever the UN wants to call something a genocide, it happens. So I think
maybe it's the veto power that is kind of blocking.
To redeem itself, they have to take some action, and not stand with the utmost human rights violators, because they'll go down in history with this tag on their self, that they stood with the aggressors, with the likes of Hitler.
But this is exactly what I want to come to, because these people who are exerting this level of war crimes against humanity on the people in Palestine have themselves been subject to massacres after the Second World War. don't they realize it, or is it more of a psychological syndrome of if you've been the victim, you have to exert the same, if not more brutal, pressure or exercise on other people in order to kind of maybe alleviate yourself of the cycle?
As the US says, they have internalized it, and they are very insecure about themselves, so they want to make themselves secure. But I mean, this is a security.
Is this the way of
this is a security. It's a classic security dilemma which comes at the cost of other person's security. But you need to see how powerful is the other person. This is a 2-month-old baby. This is a mother who is trying to protect her kids. So how insecure can you get from that? These are men who are trying to protect their families, fend for their families, earn for them. They are common people. You are just fighting a battle because you want more territory. It's a naked aggression. It is a naked hunger for more power, for more power, for more territory, for more space, and that's about it. And doing away with the Palestinian economy.
As it has more or less. The fact is, what do you foresee as far as this whole situation is concerned? You've just talked about an administration that is going to come into power by the end of January that is even more pro-Israel than this current regime. And of course, it has been highlighted in the election campaigns of the Republicans as well. Looking at that, looking at the way things are moving along, when and how is all of this going to end? When the last Palestinian is killed?
I don't think that the international community is really pressed about protecting the Palestinians beyond a certain point. For many of us, we feel that so long it's not happening to us. But this notion has also been falsified, because as Israel wanted, it attacked Iran, Lebanon, Yemen, Syria. So that doesn't leave anyone protected. If they want to do it, they have the capacity to do it, and they will do it if they put their mind to it. So I think we can't really think of the Western world, which has its very deep interest vested in Israel. I think the world needs to get together, and the initial economic boycott that we did of Israeli products and all, which as the legend goes, had a massive impact on the economy. I think we also need to tell the US that if you stop supporting Israel, if you don't stop supporting Israel, then we are going to boycott you. And perhaps that might actually bring about some impact, but there has to be some solution, and it has to go beyond just diplomatic, psychological help or empathy with the Palestinians.
Or statements, we need to go beyond statements.
They need solid help.
Thank you very much, Dr. Salma Malik, to have joined us, to have discussed this continuing plight of the people of Palestine. I don't know how else to describe it, because it is exactly that. People are suffering every single minute of every single day, and we unfortunately are trying to do whatever we can here in Pakistan, but everybody's hands are tied to a certain extent, and there needs to be a solidarity as far as a collective voice, unity in implementing all the statements that have been brought about as far as Palestine is concerned. Thank you again, Dr. Salma, to have joined us. Let's come to our second story, and that concerns social media. We do talk about social media now and then. We do talk about the issues as far as social media and what needs to be done to at least curb the negative impacts through disinformation, misinformation is concerned. But some countries are now apparently taking a stand as far as the social media is concerned. In Australia, the government has decided to put a social media ban on those who are under 16 years of age. This of course has had a very strong reaction from the social media giants as well as some of the parents. Some agree with it, others don't. Although this ban is yet to be completely implemented, it is already raising the right questions amongst all the different communities on whether this is a right step or it's not a right step. If it is a right step, then what are the paradigms of this step and how should we move forward as far as such a ban is concerned? There are bans like these and other some other countries as well. But can social media be banned, and if so, should there be a kind of a filter for the children under the age of 16 or so? There are so many questions that come to mind, and to discuss that and more, we've been joined by two guests. Let me introduce them to one by one. In the studios, we've been joined by Malik Asif Saab. He's a public speaker and a corporate trainer, and in the online we've been joined by Asad Baig, who is the director of Media Matters for Democracy. Let's begin with you, Asif Saab. Asif Saab, social media giants have hit very hard as far as this Australian law that has been put forward, banning all those who are under the age of 16 from the use of social media. They describe it as a rush job littered with many unanswered questions. The United Nations children charity UNICEF Australia has also joined these other voices as well. Whereas the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says the legislation may not be implemented perfectly, much like existing age restrictions on alcohol, but he said this was the right thing to do. Was this the right thing to do? How do you view this ban?
Thank you very much. Omar Saab, this reality, it has been staring us in the face for a very long time, and we have got a lot many whistleblowers. We can start off with Yuval Noah Harari. He has been talking about these big giants, tech giants, for a very long time. So I'll just start off with this one documentary prepared by one of the professors at one of the UK's university. The title of this documentary is The Great Hack. So in that, basically they show that this professor sued Mark Zuckerberg, and he asked them that, okay, you carry my data, only give me access to my data, and it was denied. This is like one of the aspect. Second, now there is a great aspect. There's a one European Dutch parliamentarian. She just wrote a book, and you can see just the title of the book, the coup of big tech, the coup of big tech, how to save democracy from Silicon Valley. Now, what she says that actually when innovation came, and all of us, we just welcomed it like anything, and we did not see the other side. So the way now they have just taken their roots so deep that now every side, because they have become so powerful, and now they have started showing their power, wielding their power as well. So every strata, society aspect is really going to talk about it, because now we can see a lot many challenges, issues, problems. So yes, they are.
All right. So there are challenges and problems, but herein we are talking about the children under the age of 16. There are so many challenges when it comes to social media, and this is just one of the aspects of it. Asad Baig, thank you very much to have joined us. The Australian Prime Minister says that platforms, social media platforms, have a social responsibility to make children's safety a priority. We've got your back. This is what he says. This is our message to the Australian parents. There are also fines that have been imposed for up to 50 million Australian dollars if they do not comply with it. Do you feel, from the Australian perspective or any other perspective whatsoever, that this ban is a decision in the right direction? What could be the impact, A, on the big tech, B, on society at large?
Look, Omar, I think as a parent, I can see where this is coming from. And on your show, we have spoken about it many times. We have spoken about how Zuckerberg had to apologize to the parents of young children who saw nudity on Instagram. We saw a lot of impact of cyberbullying, cyber harassment on young children. And similarly, we saw a lot of cases of, grooming of young children who got in touch with pedophiles and predators online through games, through other platforms, and so on. So, if we are to talk about the harms of the social media platforms on children, definitely there are many, many of them. But I personally feel that this is a drastic approach for various reasons, if I may, very quickly. One, currently, there is no technology to identify the ages of the people or ages of the consumers who use social media platforms. So that's a big challenge, I would say. How do you identify whether or not a person is an underage child or an adult, right? The Prime Minister, the Australian Prime Minister, is talking about some obscure technology which can be used to identify the age of the consumers through biometrics, but I'm not sure how that's going to happen, number one. Number two, the application of this ban, it's, in my personal view, there is not enough evidence to support that this kind of a ban can actually protect children from social media influences. Because we are talking, one, like if you read through the law that we are talking about here, they haven't really identified or they haven't really declared what social media platforms. They've just said social media platforms. Now, if I'm to say that one of the biggest culprits in this whole equation where the children get exposed online are online games, right? Now that technically does not qualify as a social media platform, does it? Now, a lot of murky information is accompanied with this decision. I feel that this was a drastic move, and while we completely agree with the idea of providing safety or safeguards for children who are online, I feel this might be a little too overboard.
All right. Malik, Asif, coming to you, the reactions from the different big tech or the social media platforms have also been quite brisk. TikTok says it was disappointed by the law. It accuses the government of ignoring mental health, online safety, youth experts. Meta, that owns Facebook as well as Instagram, calls for consultation on the rules to ensure a technically feasible outcome that does not place an onerous burden on the parents and the teens, whereas the Snapchat spokesman says the company had raised serious concerns about the law and many unanswered questions remain about how it would work. Will those unanswered questions be tackled by governments such as that in Australia? Will the social media platforms comply? Will they change their regulations as well concerning those under the age of 16?
Yes, there is a big challenge, and once again I just want to quote the same Dutch parliamentarian who is sitting in the Silicon Valley, and she's also a professor at Stanford University. She said that once we just visited these one of the big tech giants, and we asked similar kind of question regarding democracy, misinformation, disinformation, and so on. And see the way they cajoled us. They were not willing to answer even a single question. So we could not get even a single answer of that. But at least they have started off with this debate, with this ban. They are right, because they are not going to find a very quick fix, just to point, as my other partner has just rightly pointed out. But this debate is really going to help us. They are going to find processes. At least now we are going to focus on the how to regulate on this. And for this, obviously now since the debate has started, so obviously companies as well as government, what she has pointed out, that is quite alarming. She says that actually these politicians, political government, people who are there in the government sector, they are not familiar, whereas people in these tech giant, they are basically from private sector. Private sector is way ahead. Already they are maneuvering, they are manipulating, and believe me, they are everywhere. Okay, whether it is sharing this information and all that. We used to see that, the social media and all that, it is going to liberate, ordinary people are going to get a lot many. It's not liberating. Now what she has quoted in that book, actually the same companies, they are even providing all these authoritarian government the tools to identify people who are speaking against the governments and all that. So this is another huge challenge.
All right, this is a huge challenge. Asad Baig, is there some kind of a middle ground as far as regulation is concerned of social media platforms for children under the age of 16 or for children under the age of 18 who can be influenceable? You talked about the platform of the online games, and there are so many other platforms as well. There's the dark web as well that influences these young children to enter into another world altogether and completely change their lives for the worse. Is there some middle ground as far as regulation is concerned between the governments and the people?
Look, Omar, I feel that this was a trigger-happy decision, honestly. And like we were discussing earlier, I feel that this was more of a decision that would appeal the constituency of the Prime Minister himself, as opposed to doing actually anything substantial to provide the safeguards for the young consumers of the internet. And one of the reasons I'm saying this is because, blocking something should come really after the debate. The debate comes first, and then comes any decision, any substantial decision such as this one, for instance, right? So by doing this, I feel that they not only have taken a very a disruptive step at the loss of any other word, but also they've opened the doors for, like my colleague was pointing out, open the doors for regressive regimes who are using internet, as a tool. Number one. Number two, look, what really needs to happen is the education of the parents. It's education of the people, the guardians who are responsible for regulating their children. For instance, right, I don't really rely on the government to make sure that they regulate the content what my children consume. That's my own responsibility as a parent. So parental controls are in my control. Regulating screen time, for instance, is in my control. Regulating the access to apps that my children access, that's my control and my responsibility. So that really should be the approach, as opposed to the government deciding as to what the children can or cannot access, right? And that to me feels like a trigger. Like I said, at the cost of repeating myself, that to me feels like a trigger happy and more of a political move as opposed to anything else.
Will other countries follow suit in your point of view, this decision by Australia, or do you feel it's going to be a solitary decision?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes, that was this decision taken by the Australian government is going to be a solitary decision, or will other countries follow suit?
Look, I hope that the countries who follow suit, they follow suit with a strategy. I know for sure that there are a couple of other countries thinking about the similar kind of a ban on social media platforms for children. And once again, I completely agree with the idea that the children are at a very high risk when they connect online, and they have like an uncontrolled or undisrupted communication with strangers online, for instance, and so on. The kind of algorithmic amplification of hate that we see, like my colleague was talking about on the platforms, the kind of algorithmic, completely sort of uncontrolled content that we see, all of these challenges are there. But then again, excuse me, this might work in the Western societies, but look at, for instance, in Pakistan, right? There are so many things that the children are doing on social media platforms now. I know a lot of young children who are creating a lot of educational content for their peers online, right? They are creating a lot of sort of educational things as well. So, once again, I feel that the countries who follow suit, I hope they have a strategy, and their strategy is not just alone to ban the social media platforms, but also a more holistic approach in terms of providing safety to the younger consumers on the internet.
Thank you very much, Asad Baig, head of the Media Matters for Democracy, to have joined us to discuss this social media ban for the children under the age of 16 that is being imposed or has been imposed by the Australian government. Thank you very much, Asad, to have joined us. Coming back to you, Malik, Asif, UNESCO says 2/3 of content creators fail to check the accuracy of their material, making them as well as their followers vulnerable to misinformation. Misinformation, disinformation is something that we've been talking about in the different communities across the world, including in Pakistan, since the last few years at least. Do you feel this is something that needs to be tackled on a war footing?
Exactly. I mean, right now, Umar Saab, we are just, all of us, if we just apply it to our country, I mean, all of us, we are living our own echo chambers. So I've got like my favorite people, I'm only going to see the reality from their perspective, because this is my perspective and I just want to listen from their perspective. So I'm not going to see the other side. And this thing is going to really make us very rigid. And whatever data, now it depends upon them. And just see right now those who have got their views in millions, whatever the information they are not sharing. They're sharing. For example, the other day, I just went. Somebody was quoting.
We have to a bit cut the show short because we are a bit short of time. But thank you very much, Malik Asif Saab, to have joined us, public trainer and of course corporate trainer as well, to have discussed the impact of social media through this decision taken by the Australian government. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end for today's newsroom. Today is a Friday, so the weekend is right ahead of us. Have a wonderful one. We'll see you inshallah on Monday with stories and segments that pertain to us, you in Pakistan. Allah Hafiz.